Welcome to Rough Drafts, How God Writes His Love in Our Stories, a podcast that explores the faith journeys of our friends and neighbors in Burns, Tennessee. Everyone has a story to tell, and in this podcast, we'll hear powerful and inspiring stories of how God works in the ordinary lives of people like you and me. Our stories are unfinished and perfectly imperfect. They are just rough drafts, a glimpse of what is to come because God is still at work, writing plot twists, introducing new characters, and bringing good even from the most challenging circumstances. Join us as we see what God is up to in our stories. Here's your host, Matthew Hyatt.
Today's guest has done everything. I have put my life in his hands more than once, which is not something I greatly relish doing for anybody, but I let him help throw me over a cliff one time. He is the guy that might show up at your house if you're having a really, really bad day. How's that for an introduction? Welcome to the show, Brannon Wilkerson.
Morning, Matthew.
You doing all right?
Oh, doing good.
So you are the first person who heard the show and said, I want to share my story.
Yes, sir.
And
I've got a lot of stories to tell.
I am so excited about that. I think that's really cool. There's a difference in having a story and having a story you want to tell. So I think today's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, sir.
So what's your story?
Well, tell my story. Kind of got to go back to when I was growing up and when I was a kid. And when I grew up on a farm. It was always hard work, honest day's pay. Got great parents. My parents, they never really went to church. They never really pushed us into the church setting. We never was ever introduced to the church. It was always something to do. We raised beef cattle. We cut tobacco. We hay. There's always something that had to be done. And so one thing I always noticed when I was growing up, though, is my dad knew a lot of scripture. And I never really could understand until a few times I caught him looking at a little pocket Bible. Then I asked him about that Bible, and he said that when he was a kid, he was right out of high school, he was going to go to the military. And they was not accepting him in the military because he had some abnormalities with his feet, so he had a flat foot. And one of the things they give him was that pocket Bible. And so he would read scripture out of it, but the man never went to church. He never set foot in a church setting. So fast forward a little bit. Alicia, I met Alicia in high school, and I want to start, getting to know Alicia a little bit more. She wanted nothing to do with me.
Aww.
She was kind of set in her ways. She's 4.0 grade point average. I'm, barely getting by, getting ready to graduate.
4.0 and 4 feet tall.
That's
a perfect combination.
Yes, sir. She didn't want nothing to do with me, so I had to get with friends and other friends to be able to get Alicia to even acknowledge me. And so we was in marketing class, and I would try to angle my chair, in Alicia's group, so that way I could, I figured, hey, that if we done a course together, or we done a project together, she had to talk to me or she fell out. So, but getting Alicia to, to acknowledge me and it was a process. So I got Alicia to finally we started dating and went to, we graduated high school together. We went to prom together and odd and ends. And she went off to college. So, and I was worried about her finding somebody that may be a little bit more dressed, had a little bit more money in the bank than I was. But, she stayed together, stayed the course. And she's an all around good person. She went to nursing school and got her bachelor's degree. And during that process, I joined the fire department right across the street with the town of Burns. And that's where I come to know Kenny and Melvin Sullivan. They were both of them in Vietnam. Dad taught me the hard work's pay, and they taught me how to dress and keep my boot shined and my gig line straight. So I was getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
But I got into doing some different things with that, and starting that in a small career, it set me up for a full-time job when I got out of high school. So, and I thought, I just grow old right here with the town of Burns. Stay right here. And so over time, Alicia, she was real big into the church. She always, she'd come to church since she was a kid, and I never really come to church. And she told me, she said, I want you to start going to church with me on Sundays. And
she may be one of the top 5 longest-term members of Burns Church of Christ, which is crazy when you think about the fact she's, well, I'm not going to say her age, but not old enough to have that record.
Right.
Because she's been here.
She's been here a long time. Mm-hmm. And her family, they came here. Adam's been coming here for a long time.
Yeah.
Alicia was coming to church here. She wanted me to come to church, and I would tell her, that really didn't want to go to church. I didn't understand it. I don't understand what the Bible was. And at that point, I didn't. She pretty much set the boundary that I'm not going to be with a man that's not going to go to church. And so she's told me that if you're going to be in my life and you're going to be with me, I need you to go to church. So I came to the church. I came for the wrong reasons. When I'd come into the church, I would, I thought, well, it's just an hour. I just get through it. I was coming to keep the girl, keep her happy. And the more and more that repetitiveness of coming to church and being here, I started really realizing that this is where I want to be. And I started really following along and started really trying to learn. And Alicia bought me my first Bible. And so being able to go back and put everything into context and starting in Genesis, it really changed my life. There was one portion though that I remember, and it was an analogy that you used that really set the tone for me coming to the church, and that was the farmer and the farm animals. And it was your dedication to God. Are you coming for certain reasons? Are you coming because you want to come? Or are you coming because you feel like you have to come? And that one was that the farmer and the animals is going to make breakfast for the farmer.
Oh yeah, the chicken and the bacon and the eggs.
That's right.
That's right.
The pig was going to bring. That's right. The pig was going to bring the bacon, and the chickens was going to bring the eggs. And it was like, how dedicated are you? And the pig had to give up a portion of his body, where the chickens just give a few eggs.
Yeah.
And that set the tone for me. And
wow, I hadn't thought about that.
Yep.
That's been a long time.
That's been a long time. And so that was when I really wanted to start following Christ a whole lot more, and started getting involved in the church a little bit more. And being set in my job with the fire department over next door, I was rope rescue instructor, cave rescue instructor. I was able to bring those skills that I enjoyed doing with my job to the church. We went to Vacation Bible School and was doing the rappelling, and
you helped us at camp. You helped us on a church retreat.
It was fun times. We really enjoyed being part of it. We went rock climbing that time, and
I don't know if Leslie ever confessed, but she was pregnant with Caleb one of the times that we did the rappelling, but she didn't tell you because she didn't think you'd let her do it if you do.
There had to have all those safety classes before every event, but it was. I think there's a lot of people that still have trust issues with me at the church.
We didn't lose anybody that day.
Nobody lost their life that day.
No, I thought we were going to drum up some business for Tommy Marv.
That's right.
I remember your wedding. You did something in the wedding with your vows.
I did.
You guys wrote vows for each other.
We did. I wrote, I wouldn't even say it was even the vows. It was like a short story that had the vows on the end of it, and Alicia did the same, but I got a scroll. I made into a scroll, took 2 sticks and rolled it up, and so that video is actually on YouTube.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, you can go to Alicia and Brannon on YouTube, and it'll bring up that wedding video and all that's on it. And me and Alicia, we still visit that periodically because, my grandparents have passed on now and her mom's passed on. So that's kind of a way that we get to relive hear their voice and see everybody.
It's funny. I knew what you were doing. You had told me what you were going to do, but still the visual, when you pull this scroll out and drop it, it seems like you had it long enough that it hit the floor or just almost hit the floor.
It was long. It was enough. It was enough that the wind blew in the church when I let it down.
That's right. That was a great moment.
It was.
So Alicia's been a big part of your story.
She has been. And telling that story, I think that, God put Alicia in my life for a reason, and it was able to bring me to the church and straighten me up and teach me the ways. And it really, that she was a godsend, that's for sure. And I remember when I started when the career with the fire service, and I was doing all that, I got into scuba diving real big. And so I got into, I was the only guy that had scuba diving equipment, and I was working over here. And so the police department would say, hey, this guy's got scuba diving. We need to get this car out of the lake. Just call him. He'll come get it. And I'd done that multiple times, just getting cars, getting different things for the police department, and really enjoyed that. So I tried to make that a secondary career. And I started my own company in 2009. I got my underwater crime scene and forensics, and I was doing shooting reconstruction, bloodstain analysis, anything that had to deal with the underwater side of things. I was recovering guns, cars, and bodies, and made that a full-time business. And that really took off. And, I was building my little empire there.
Okay. Can you tell any stories from that era?
I've got a lot. The Holly Bobo trial was one of the big cases that I worked. The Joe Clyde Daniels was a big case that I was part of. And so I've recovered things. Okay. I've seen things that my mind can never erase.
Okay, I don't want to go to the dark places for your sake and the listeners, but tell me something funny that happened in all those recoveries, or something crazy you found.
Oh, I found all kinds of stuff. I don't even know where I was unprepared for that part. There's so much stuff that I've done and been part of, and I've been everywhere from Alabama to Kentucky to different parts of Tennessee, and word of mouth got out. Hey, this guy's got this training. This guy's got this equipment, and I had trailers and boats, and it was just a big empire that I was building, and I was going all over the place recovering things for Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency. It was a lot that I was taking on. And the same time that I was taking, this business on, we were talking about maybe getting married at the time and what our future held. And I remember one time, it was after a dive, I was filling some dive bottles and, went in, took a shower, and I felt like I had a burden on my shoulder, and it really was weighing me down. And I felt that I just had a lot, that was on me. And I remember when I got out of the shower, I called you and I told you, Matthew, I want to get baptized.
Yeah.
And I remember something along those lines. You had something going on at, hey, we'll meet in the morning, or we'll meet this afternoon, when it would work with our schedule. We can meet at the church and make that happen. And I remember when I got off the phone with you, it was 10 minutes. I called you and I was like, I got to go now.
Yeah.
I want to go now. And he's like, all right, meet me at the church.
Yeah.
When I got baptized. And along with getting baptized, I was able to bring my mother with me, and she got baptized that day. And family gathered around, and it was just an emotional time.
That was a really cool moment.
And I felt like I had a lot of burden, a lot of concrete, weight on my shoulders. And then after I got baptized, it was all washed away, and I felt, that accepting Christ and having that coat of armor around me, and after that, a lot started happening. Then we was working at the fire department, running this business. Me and Alicia decided that we was going to get married, and how original that we went to Gatlinburg, and I had a diver go underwater and had a sign that said, will you marry me? And so, I knew she was going to say yes, because this whole time she's been, you better put a ring on my finger. And so she said yes, and we decided to get married. And it was a stressful time because we was building a house. We was trying to get the wedding set. You remember we was meeting here all the time, family gathering.
All the jobs, because, all of
jobs, and she's working at the hospital.
And you both had horrible schedules because, fire service and people aren't real considerate about when they end up dying in a lake and need pulled out. They don't call in advance.
Yeah, they don't call in advance. There's no scheduling. I've missed a lot of birthdays. I missed a lot of different things, to try to keep that going and try to help, others and do that. And it was just, it was a lot that was going on. But, Alicia understood at a young age with me being in the fire service that she knew what she was getting at the time. And she's lived that lifestyle for so long that I'd get up in the middle of the night and we'll have to go different places and our work schedules. And, but yeah, so, and I wanted to tell you kind of the backstory about everything. So, so kind of explain a little bit more about, my stories and me and Alicia's been through a lot. And,
yeah, you have.
And one of our first story was when Alicia was, so I was sanding the handrails. I won't never forget. I was sanding the handrails and working on the house, and Alicia had come by, and it was very weird for Alicia to come in the afternoons. I was living at a house on Maryland Drive. She was still living with her mom and dad. We didn't see no reason to move, all of her stuff until we got the house built. So we just make one big move, and she would stay the night with me at my house, a few times. And so I was sanding the handrails, and I remember Alicia coming in, and she's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." Now, Alicia's one of them that she'll just continue talking, and I'll just ignore it. And I'm like, "Oh, hey, what'd you say?" That didn't happen. I could tell on her face that something was bothering her. So I went out on the porch, and we talked for a little bit, and she gave me this box, and I opened it up, and it had a pregnancy test in it. And so, I was really excited, really scared at the same time. I barely was able to feed myself and take care of myself at that point. And how was I going to take care of another kid, And we planned on having a child, but we just didn't expect it to be that soon.
Right.
Being as happy as we were, we say, hey, let's lock the house up. Let's shut the air compressors off. Let's go out and eat. Let's celebrate. And so me and Alicia went out to a little restaurant, a little Mexican place, and we sat and ate and was just talking about our lives. And, hey, we're going to be parents. This is great. And, Alicia said, "Hey, I'm going to stay the night." So, she come over to the house, and we watched a movie. And the whole time, Alicia just seemed like she was uncomfortable, like her stomach was hurting. Yeah. And so I remember Alicia just saying that, that it was a pain that she couldn't get over. And Alicia's very tough. She would, she doesn't go to the hospital for nothing, never rarely gets sick. She's just all around healthy. And so I thought, well, you eat Mexican. and it happens. I've been down there.
Been there, done that.
So, nothing. She still was she's like, I need to go to the hospital. And for Alicia to say that was a red flag for me.
Yeah.
Because,
It's like call life flight.
And now she's going to the hospital where she works. And all these people are there, that we know. And so we thought, well, Natchez just opened up. We'll go out to Natchez. We don't know anybody out there.
Yeah.
We walked in the door. We knew everybody from the janitor to the security guard to all the nurses. Everybody knows, we got a big footprint in this and in the medical field. And so Alicia goes in and, we're trying to keep that, hey, she's pregnant, because you tell one person, they tell somebody else.
Yeah.
So. The doctors gathered around and they done an ultrasound and they were discussing some things, and I was interjecting myself because I wanted to know what was going on, and that was when they come to find out that Alicia had some internal bleeding. Mm-hmm. So they put Alicia into an ambulance and they took her off, to Centennial Hospital, Women's Hospital, and I went home and I was trying to gather stuff off the counter. I got the salt shaker, whatever I could. I just raked everything off into a bag and we headed to the
You never know when the fries might not be salty enough.
That's right. I just grabbed everything off the table, and there was stuff I didn't need, and it was just I was in a hurry to get to the hospital. But Alicia, that was when I got there. The doctor said, we're going to do an emergency surgery, and the doctor told me, he said, I don't know if we're going to be able to save the baby. He said, at this point, we're trying to save Alicia's life. She's lost a lot of blood. There was a lot of time from the time that we was at the house to the time that she got to the hospital, it was a lot of time had passed. She had a lot of bleeding that they had to take care of. We get to the hospital, or we get to the emergency. They're taking care of everything, and that was whenever I really just got down on my knees and started praying. I really didn't. I was, it was a rough time. Everybody was gathering around. Family was showing up. Everybody was praying. Everybody was crying. We didn't know what the outcome was going to be, and time went along. It was probably 6-7 hours. Doctor come out and he told me, he said, Alicia's going to be okay. Well, he said she had a cyst rupture on her ovary. We was able to stop the bleeding. He said, and along with that, he said we was able to save the baby. So, me, her dad, mom, and, Adam, everybody's on a room looking at me, and I'm like, surprise. And that's how we got Keaton Robert Wilkerson.
I don't think I realized that's how they found out y'all were expecting.
That's how Keaton got here. Healthy kid. Yeah. Couldn't ask for a better kid.
Oh, he's doing
very
great
smart.
Today.
If you laid a Game Boy or a math book, he's all about math. He loves math. He loves building stuff. He's got a little attitude like his mom, but he's a great kid.
Careful, she might hear this someday.
He's a great kid. Time went along. I was looking at, enjoyed being here with the town of Burns and serving the people. And I knew everybody, I felt like in the city between Miss Garton and Miss Pearl Johnson, it was great. It was,
And I love the relationship the church has had with the fire hall over the years, because, I've picked up the phone so many times and called you or whoever the chief is then or now, and they've just,
great people
doing stuff that they didn't have to do.
That's right.
Honestly, sometimes probably doing stuff they weren't supposed to do, but it was the right thing to do.
That's right. Just about every street sign that's hung up in the city between, the maintenance department and the fire department, a lot of these lean-tos on these buildings we fixed. We've done a lot of stuff for the community that a big fire department or a big service would not do. They would not have time to do it, but they wouldn't be able to do it.
And I wish people saw how some of the small town life, people pick on some of the good old boy stuff that happens in small towns, but there's some real beautiful stuff. This is the simplest little thing in the world, but just yesterday, some of our packages got delivered to the fire hall, and, later that afternoon, here comes the fire truck, drives up to the door, brings it up.
That's right.
You don't have to do that.
Right. They're good people.
They're great people.
And I really enjoyed my time here with the town of Burns. I really, enjoyed being and taking care of the people here. Over time, though, things started growing, having a family and having, a mortgage and trying to get things squared away. I winded up taking a full-time position with the Nashville Fire Department.
Small towns don't pay and have the benefits that the big city does.
That pension program and other things that was involved with it. So in 2016, I went there and was really, got really strong footprint there, was doing a lot of tactical medicine. We have an RTF team, which is a rescue task force, kind of like a SWAT stuff. So kind of got involved with that and doing some different things with the fire department working on the ambulance and it's a different way of life there.
So
it's
what is tactical medicine? I don't think I've ever heard that.
So it's more of like SWAT type setup. We can send paramedics and EMTs will go in a group with the police department, and if we have
a company
an active shooter situation. Wow. If we have some kind of large situation that involves, handgun or something, we can send a group in to help, triage people and take care of people. That's what they were noticing with a lot of these case files is a lot of these shootings that happen is they just can't get medical personnel in there quick enough to stop the bleed. And so we put these people into put these paramedics and these EMTs in these situations and send them in. And so it was we're doing a lot of training and a lot of things that are moving forward with the events that happens in Nashville and different threats, especially after the bombing on Christmas. It changed a lot of the way we operate. Yeah. And it's there's a lot of things that happen that behind the scenes that people don't think about, with the Music City Marathon that comes. And,
I was just thinking about that.
There's just so much planning and they do a great job there's a great relationship between the fire department and the police that coordinate and keep that all in line and keep that together. And
I ran that for the first time a couple of years ago, and I was surprised how many snipers I saw.
That's right.
And I have a mutual friend, he said to me, I just want you to know that for every one you saw, there were 3 you didn't.
That's right.
And I thought, what a terrible thing that the world is such a place that's needed. But you feel good knowing that you've got some good people.
Exactly. And with the Boston bombing, that changed a lot. And so that's why they we do these case studies and we change the way that we operate.
Like from other people.
The snipers are on all the buildings. There's the helicopters that are, circling.
I asked a few of them to shoot me, but none of them would do it. I really needed
a lot of paperwork.
About halfway through. I thought, what can I do to get this response? But no.
Well, a lot of paperwork goes into that, Matthew. You have to.
I know.
So I took that job up there and I really enjoyed it. And I've had a lot of things happen since I've been there. Been shot at, had people try to stab me.
You've been shot at.
We've been shot at. Pull up, and it's time to go.
What idiot wants to shoot a medic?
They do. Some people just right now we live in a day and age where there's a lot of psychological issues that are going on with people, and they're we just find ourselves in situations and sometimes we're misidentified as something else or somebody else, and so it just it's being the first responder. You're the first one there. It's you never know what you're walking into, and you get called for a chest. You get called for a chest pain, and it's a foot pain. And so sometimes translations get mixed up between the 911 system and the caller, and so it sometimes we get put in a situation that we don't.
In a high stress situation, people are not terribly reliable.
It is. But there's also a lot of good. I've met a lot of different walks of life since I've been there, and I've seen a lot of different things with, different people and where they come from and getting to talk to people and even some of the homeless people that we see, that we interact with on a daily basis. They even, hearing their story is just heartbreaking sometimes, and how they wind up in that situation. And
how do you avoid getting cynical? Because, when you see your frequent flyers and you Narcan the same guy 3 times in a week, it's easy.
It's hard to stay professional. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to be able to do that. And, you get the people that, want to harm themselves, or the people that are, drinking all the time, and the people that are always, just a lot of mischief things that, that they could have corrected on their own self. But, you still have to stay the course. And I tell people this story that I'm getting ready to tell the podcast. I tell my story to these people, and sometimes I feel like it helps. Yeah. These people will be able to change.
A thing I have to remind myself in some of those situations is, a person, a death sentence is reserved for people who do the worst things. Somebody doesn't deserve to die because they've gotten hooked on drugs.
Right. I've seen just about any way a man could die. It's just, it's one of them things, whether it be accidental, intentional, environmental, or, it's.
So what does that do to your faith?
It tests it.
Yeah.
It tests it because I wonder why this happens to them, why these people were put in that situation. It does test your faith.
I look at some of those stories and I'm just blown away by how good I've had it. There's never been a night in my life where I've been at risk of freezing to death. And if there was, it was because I was stupid and went camping.
And that's the thing, is I always put myself in those shoes. We may be 12 calls in on a, 12-hour period, maybe 10 calls in, and it's that same person that you pick up all the time. But here's the deal. Between every single call that I run, I'm able to go back to a warm fire station, or it would really you don't get to sleep at Nashville because it's so busy. But when you do get to catch some downtime or sit in a recliner, and there's always, food, and somebody's always cooking, and we always have somebody doing something there. But those people don't get that option. They stay out there in those tents, and they sleep in those tents for, days on end, and, they don't know where their next meal is coming from, and it's, it's very hard to be able to interact with that, but you have a professional job that you have to do, and
you and I have good resources, good families, good training.
That's right.
But navigating the medical system for you and me is not easy.
Right.
Much less somebody who has nothing, I really feel even sometimes for some of our seniors who are, are trying to call doctors and trying to get callbacks and trying to get test results. And, you and I know how to email them. And, you and I know how to leave the voicemail, but some of our people, that's a huge roadblock too.
And they are criticized for calling the ambulance or the fire department because they're cold. And so they'll come up with some, excuse, I'm having chest pain or I'm having this. And it's simply, they're hungry and they're cold. And, we have to treat those people. You treat just like normal. We have to go through the thing. Okay, you're having chest pain. We have to do the EKGs. We have to, it's a long process but we have to, and then when they do have a medical emergency, a lot of times when they go into the hospitals, people don't take them for, they take it for granted because these people he's here 3 times a day, and
he's looking for pills.
That's right. And so
but it's not worth killing one person because you're suspicious of the other. It's easy to say, well, that's just what they're all like, but they don't.
And that's the thing. I treat, the millionaires like I treat the homeless. I treat the homeless like I treat the millionaires. It's, we're all God's people. And these people, they've been through a lot, just as simple as maybe their family was in a car wreck. They got behind on medical bills and, now this is the only way they live. And so we try to help out. And the National Fire Department's real good about that. They'll give out coats during the wintertime. They'll open up different shelters and I'll, take these people to these shelters. We also do blankets. We'll give out, blankets and different things that's been donated to the fire department. So there's a lot of good that comes out. And sometimes, you interact with that person and you see them on down the road and they've got a suit and tie on. They took a good job and they've really turned their life around.
That's pretty cool when you get to see that happen.
It is.
So tell me about your story.
So, so I took that job at Nashville Fire Department. Right after that, Cason Rhett come along, and he's been a joy to us. He's he's a spitfire. He's the one that'll give you a hug and then sock you in the nose at the same time, But great kid. He's just all around. He was a blessing to us, and in 2019, that's when our life really changed. It was April 11th of 2019. I was going to work at the National Fire Department, and I was going to Station 11, and I usually stop at Dunkin' if I can't make coffee on my own at the house if we're out or something. And so I pulled in a Dunkin' out here at the interstate, and they didn't have or their little headset was messed up. So I was like, man, I'm gonna have to go out to.
But America runs on Dunkin'.
It does run on Dunkin', but that morning they didn't have no batteries for their headset, I guess. So I had to go to the Fairview. I thought, well, I'll just go over there and get my coffee. And so I took my seatbelt off, I paid for my coffee in Fairview, and I got back on the interstate and didn't put my seatbelt back on. And I'm driving down and drinking my coffee, listening to my music, and there was 2 individuals in a vehicle that were road raging, and they were cutting each other off, and I kind of gave, a safe distance back, and they got on ahead of me, and they wound up crashing. Right there in McCory Lane, where I come around the little bend there was a guardrail. I remember there was a FedEx truck beside me, and they were dead stop in the center, and I was doing 75, 80 mile an hour, and I remember it was quick reaction. I wound up hitting the rear end of that vehicle. That vehicle raked up on top of my car, and I was pinned in the car. Not having my seatbelt on, it threw me over into the passenger seat of the vehicle. And I remember a gentleman coming up to the side of my car, and he was doing all his might to get the passenger door open. And when he got it open, the first thing he did was kneel down, and I remember him saying, "Can I pray for you?"
Oh, wow.
I said, "Please." And at that point, I couldn't move anything from the neck down. That guy prayed for me, and I remember asking him when he got done praying, I was like, can you help me sit up in the car? So when he pushed me up, I couldn't breathe. At that point, the first responders was starting to come. I knew a lot of the people that were there. I knew, I kind of facial recognition, being able to see them, but there was one in particular person that I worked with here in Dixon County on an ambulance. He worked for Cheatham EMS. He also works for National Fire Department.
Oh, wow.
And so, I worked with him, there, and he was at his second job in Cheatham, and he got off, and they said, hey, this guy's I had him a uniform on. They said, this guy works for National Fire Department. And they knew Pat worked for National Fire Department. And so Pat Carruthers was the first responder. He come up, and he was a paramedic. After they cut the door open and got me out, it was just one of them things. He's like, Bubba, we're going to take care of you. We'll get you in the back of the truck. And I can tell by the way he was carrying himself, by the way he was talking, that this was a serious crash.
Like
and I already knew that this was serious. Yeah. And being on the other side, when they start talking about vital signs and EKG and all this, I already knew. Like, I knew this was serious, but he just reiterated what I already knew, that this was serious. Got me in the back of the truck. Again, everything's going through my mind. My wife, my kids, the whole time that this is going on, Alicia's asleep in the bed, has no knowledge of this. My kids are sound asleep in their bed, no knowledge that, I'm fighting for my life. They get me in the back of the ambulance and proceed to Vanderbilt. After I was there in that bed, I remember getting transferred over to the trauma, and they asked me, started the trauma protocol, asking me a bunch of questions, and then I don't remember nothing after that. It was once they started giving me the medicine and they knocked me down, I don't remember. And at that point, I come to know later of my injuries, and I had sustained a vertical shear to my right hip, and that's where everything on your right hip is just completely broken. It's shoved up. I had a flailed chest, which is more than 4 segments of your ribs on your left side was broke. So every time I took a breath, my breathing was inadequate. Also, I had busted the orbital bones behind my eyes, and I had a C5 injury to my spinal cord and a fracture, which was causing the paralysis from the neck down. So, and at that point, I didn't know if I'd ever be back to, being able to move my hands or my legs. And so while I was down and incapacitated, this is where Alicia had to make these hard decisions. And they said, if we do this surgery to his eyes, through these bones in his eyes, he could be blind for the rest of his life. Yeah. And she was having to make a lot of decisions on my behalf. Even though I was already paralyzed, they told him, hey, if we do this surgery, this could be the outcome. And so Alicia had some very big tasks left on her that she had to overcome. And they told the Vanderbilt doctors told the National Fire Department, said that he will never be back to work in the capacity that he was working for the National Fire Department. And again, they told Alicia, they said he'll probably never walk again.
This is an audio podcast, so people can't see, but I do notice you're wearing a sweatshirt that says Nashville Fire Department. So I hope I'm not ruining the ending of the story.
You're good. You're good. So I went through the process, and we come to later know that I had an incomplete spinal cord injury. Okay. So the transmission was still there. And they said, his body has to take the trauma. And if it takes the trauma and he can build up with his rehabilitation, that he can get, hopefully he can at least get, the movement and the legs and be able to sustain, a little bit more. So time went along. I started the therapy process, and I spent 4 months in the ICU at Vanderbilt, and then they moved me from there to Stallworth, and I spent some time there, and I was in a dark headspace. And I made a lot of promises to God that if you give me my legs back and you give me my arms back and you give me back to normal, I'll be a better person. I'll do more with my life. I pushed myself hard when they would say, hey, give me 10 reps, I'd give them 20. Do 30 of these, I'd give them 40. And I was really pushing myself. There's pictures, me hanging from the ceiling. I've nurses on both legs, moving my feet. I was on treadmills. I mean, they had me doing all kinds of stuff, and it was a long process. They took my driver's license away because of the neuro damage that I sustained. It's kind of like somebody who has epileptic seizures. They'll take their driver's license away for a little bit until they get their testing, and I had to go back and take my driving test. And so it was a lot, but I was able to get back to work,
So is it easier to pass the driving test in your 30s than it was when you were 16?
You know, it was nerve-wracking because
I bet it was.
when you're in that car wreck and then now you're behind the wheel again. And in Nashville, you know, I done my driving test when I was a kid here in Dixon. There's not as many people as it is in Nashville.
So you're behind the tractor, though.
Yeah, people are road raging already, you know, and so it was something. And it was just really weird having that student driver on the back of the car.
Yes, it was.
Merge traffic and figure all that out.
And trying to do all the things the right way instead of the way that people actually drive.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. So, you know, that happened and we got back to normal, and I have no deficits. I'm back to the way I was before the wreck. The only downfall is the whole time that I told you my story going through the fire department and in Nashville, I'm still operating this dive business at the same time. I mean, I had dives scheduled up. I had things going on. At that point, we were cleaning boats and we were doing underwater cutting and welding. I mean, we had a lot of things that was really going, but at that point, I was unable to dive again.
Yeah.
And I wound up having to sell that business that I was operating for so long and that I was building up because, you know, my spinal cord wouldn't allow me to be able to do those activities anymore.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was some good that come out of that though, because I was able to, my kids are getting older. They're getting involved in different things. They're getting involved in the Boy Scouts. And so now it's, my kids, I get to spend more time with them. You know? And so I think there was a light at the end of the tunnel that, you know, hey, spend more time with your kids. And you know, I miss it. You know, I actually sold that gear off to some friends that's just right down the road, Tennessee City Fire Department. And so when you see them go out and do these type of things, I really miss, you know, being part of that. But I know that
they'll take you out for a weekend sometime.
No, I don't get to do all that.
Yeah.
But it's been a lot. And, you know, right after that, when we thought that was, you know, that was the end of that, we headed off to Florida, and Alicia was talking to her mom, and she was like, hey, you know, Mom was, you know, y'all be safe, y'all have fun. I can't wait to see pictures, tell my grandkids I love them. We get down to Florida. Sandy, you know, has been through a lot. She, you know, would be in a wheelchair and having, you know, the dialysis treatments for years, and she, you know, she was strong
for the dialysis.
Yeah, she was strong. And Steve, you know, stepping in and taking care of her all this time. But Sandy was in good spirits and she was healthy at, you know, to herself there. And we go down to Florida, and me and Alicia's enjoying being out on the beach and spending time with the kids. It was a much needed vacation this is our first vacation since, you know, the wreck. And
yeah.
So, and vacations for us are very far and few between. You know, even when we go out and eat, you know, it's 6 months since the last time I've sat down in a restaurant. You know, when you got kids and work, it's just real busy.
Y'all's schedule's just impossible.
It is. Alicia, I won't never forget, man, Alicia I was out in the water with the kids playing, and I looked up on the beach, and Alicia just had this distraught, disgusted face, and I knew something was wrong. And so I told the kids, hey, come on, let's go talk to your mom. And so we get back up on the beach, and I'm talking to Alicia, and she's like, Mom's not doing good. Adam just called and said that they're taking her to the hospital by ambulance. And she said that she just didn't know if, you know, her mom was going to make it. And so I told Alicia, I said, let's go, you know, let's pack it up. And so we're, you know, throwing stuff in this little wagon, and we're going back into the condo, and we're packing everything up. And, you know, the kids look like pack mules. They're carrying stuff to the car. And right after that, Alicia just sit down on the floor and started crying. And it took me a minute to get it out of her that her mom had done passed away. That was the longest drive. You know, Florida's a long drive anyways.
Yeah.
That was one of the longest drives that I think I've ever endured.
It's always hard to come home from vacation, but it's harder to come home that way.
It's harder to come home that way. And I think that was God's way. You know, he's going to put you where he's going to put you. And I think putting Alicia at the beach, and if Alicia would have had any insight that her mom was sick at that point, she would have never went on that vacation. She would have stayed. And I think that was his will to get us to go to the beach and enjoy life. And that's the way that he was ready to call Sandy home.
Yeah.
And he was ready for her.
And she had struggled so long.
She had, and it was just it was a lot that Alicia was enduring at one time. And I've still got both of my parents, and I don't know how that feels, but I can tell you it was a lot for our household for a long bit.
Well, and I mean, you told story after story of tough stuff. You haven't told the story about when you were at the fire department and went for the slip and slide off a roof.
I did. I slipped off the roof and snapped my ankle and had to put rods and pins in it.
How many surgeries are you up to in your life
probably
now?
10, 12,
Yeah.
it's, just hope my kids have better luck than I've had this past.
You're not taking them to
Well,
Vegas.
and it ain't even, just recently, it was December 10th, 2021. Our house got hit by that tornado.
Yeah.
That come through Mayfield, Kentucky. And and I'm a real big, that's kind of what I enjoy doing is storms. And Alicia, I get her all riled up. I'm like, hey, it's going to storm today, and I'll watch these storms as they move through Arkansas and Oklahoma. And so, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to listen to it, but I enjoy it. I get up on my computer and I'll watch, the radar and listen to different people talk. And these specific storms, I was a little uneasy about anyways, the way that people were talking in Nashville and this area being in the direct path of these storms. And I remember that night, it was 2 hours before they were getting ready to hit. So I was like, well, I'll go to sleep, and then set my alarm and I'll get up when they get close. And we had the weather radios and things set. And I remember getting up and checking the radar and looking and seeing Mayfield got hit and all these different places. And when they started calling out roads, there are areas like Loretta Lynn's, Hurricane Mills, Only Tennessee, the I-40 corridor, I started thinking, man, it's close to home, and with us having 2 kids at the time, it was like, I went in there, I told Alicia, I said, let's go down to the storm shelter. And we built a storm shelter. We have never used this tornado shelter. It's part of our house that we just, we never been to, never used it. We used it for storage for most of it, most of the time. And so Alicia, she kind of got that look on her face, like, this is serious. Like, he never goes to the storm shelter. And so we go down to it's like God put his hand on my back and said, take your family to the storm shelter. I remember turning on the TV on our back porch and turning on Leland Stadium and listening. And we was down in the storm shelter at Keaton, I have to use the restroom. And it's like, this is the wrong time I'm doing that. So we took care of that problem. I said, get to the back of the storm shelter. And before I can get the door shut, the tornado was on top of us. And our house started shaking. We started, our ears was popping. Water was pouring in under our house. And it was literally 30 seconds to a minute of terror. When the storm passed, I remember telling Alicia, I was like, just stay here. Let me go look and see, I know something's tore up.
Yeah.
When I come out, I noticed the first thing off the bat that Alicia's vehicle was moved 15 feet from where it was sitting. My truck was slid. The windows was busted out of my car. Everything that, we had ever worked for, everything that was in the back of our house was completely gone.
Yeah.
Our windows was busted out. We had mud on our cabinets. We had water on our floors.
Mud on the cabinet.
On the cabinet.
I mean, it takes a lot to throw
It takes
mud.
a lot. And so I'll be honest, I was putting that pitiful me, it's our stuff's tore up. I didn't realize, and our neighbor, his shop was in our yard, and my shop was completely gone, and my boat was gone, and it was until the sun come up that I realized just how blessed that we were.
Yeah. And
when the sun come up, I noticed that our neighbors down the road, their houses were completely gone, and there was nothing but just the foundation left. So, I feel like that was a sign from God to get my family into that basement, and to, we've been through some stuff, dude, but, we're still a work in progress. And
well, you talked about in Stallworth, dark times. You talked about you come out that morning and it's dark times. How do you get out of them? What
just
out?
Keeping our faith.
Yeah.
And it's leaning on each other has been a big thing. And me and Alicia's been together, and it's just like we've been through worse. Let's just, every day you just get up, you just rebuild, you keep going, and she's my rock.
She's a fighter. She's tough.
Yeah, she is. And my kids, they're a good support system. And, that's when I go to work and I see the worst and I deal with the worst, coming home and just having that hug and, and hey, we missed you today. It's just it's awesome. I love being a dad. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. And we all just depend on each other. And, and here's the thing, in the church has been real, has been a blessing to us too. We reached out whenever our house got hit by the tornado, and the ladies that come together when the car wreck happened and, help, with my childcare, I'll never forget that.
Oh, I had forgotten about that.
Yeah. And the meal trains from the Gaskins, and I don't even want to name all the people because there's so many people with the Coons.
Wasn't it Harriet who organized the childcare stuff?
Yes. And there was just so many people that was part of that I just, we're very blessed.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that keeps us moving, and having, good family members and good church base behind us. And the Nashville Fire Department reached out, and they were bringing chainsaws. And I just realized that, that at the same time, that 5 houses down, there was another Nashville firefighter that lives down from me. So, they were coming to help him, coming to help me. And it was just, it was a blessing. And so it's the faith and family that keeps us going. And
I think it's in a country song, but there's that line, when you're going through hell, keep on going.
keep on going.
And don't stop.
Don't stop.
And that's what
I feel like this is all a bigger plan. I feel like God has a bigger plan for me and Alicia. There's a reason why I did die in that car wreck. There's a reason why I got my arms and my legs back. There's a reason why we endured that tornado. There's a reason why that, Alicia's mom passed away while we were gone on this trip, when she, she's always been sick, but she wasn't in the state of critical sickness at that point. There's a reason for everything, and God, has the backing to that, and He knows the answers, and man, Alicia's just along for the ride.
Yeah. And I mean, once you reach that realization of, I don't have to have the answer, that frees up a whole lot of your heart and mind for something else. I mean, I still want them. I'm just like, why did this happen? But when I learned to let go of some of that, it's a whole lot easier to find some peace.
It is. And, me being baptized, at that point, I thought, with my job that I was doing, everything that I had going on, I thought, if I pass, if something happens to me, I want to be right with God. And at that point, I was like, I hope today's not the day. I hope today's not the day. And then after being baptized, I'm ready.
Some peace.
Yeah, it's peace.
And it's just even the way that your incidents have happened. People picture the danger of being a firefighter, of going into a burning building, but the drive to work.
Yeah, the drive to work.
Doing
One
maintenance
thing you never think of.
in town.
That's right.
A random Friday night, Saturday morning storm system in December. It's December. You're not supposed to have tornadoes in December.
Well, and that's the thing, being deployed on these hurricanes and the tornadoes that hit Nashville, and seeing all these people going through it, the longest time I lived by that thing, well, this happened to them, it can't happen to me.
Yeah.
And then now it's surreal that it could happen to me. It can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And so it's really opened up my mind, opened up my heart, going out being a better person. Yeah. Going out, just like Bradford says, each one teach one.
Yeah.
And I'm able to take everything that I've endured, everything that I've been through, and I get these people in the back that are going through their worst time. And it may not be nothing, in our eyes, but in theirs, that's the worst thing that they've ever went through in their life. And to be able to share my story when they're in a car wreck, and it just changed the way that I operate. I've been on the backside of that. I know how that feels. My house got hit by the tornado. I know what you're going through. I know how to be displaced, and the Red Cross have to step in. And me and Alicia's one of these. We'd rather be $10 million in debt than somebody give you $1. But at the instance, it was hard for us to sit back and let people help us, because we're so used to helping other people. Yeah. And it was just being on the other side really changed how we are.
Absolutely.
Our biggest thing right now is still childcare, and luckily Horizon Medical Center works with Alicia and Nashville Fire Department. I work 4 days. I work 2 days on, and then I have 2 nights, and she works 3 days. We get 1 day together. When the moons line up, we're able to make things happen. And we're still a work in progress. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm a whole lot better than where I was.
Shoot.
And Alicia, same thing. We try to get involved as much as the church as we can. Our ox gets stuck in the rut. We try to, but we're working on it.
Yeah.
And we're trying to, every day, and, just bestowing this in our kids. And that's why I really enjoyed you allow me to come and do this podcast, because being able to tell my story, even for me sitting right here, I've had all these little puzzle pieces in life, and being able now to put all these puzzle pieces together and think, wow, I really have been through a lot,
And to know that you're young still.
Right. 34.
You've got a lot of story left in front of you. And
I do.
No telling what the next chapter's like.
There's no telling.
I hope you've gotten all the hard chapters out of the way early.
I hope so. Every morning when I wake up, it's like an old Buick. I'm just, I'm spitting and sputtering, and, just let it run, and it'll finally work its way.
Spray some starter fluid on it, maybe.
That's right. When I step up from the chair, all the check engine lights cut on, and,
right.
but get up every morning, continue on my life like nothing ever happened, tell my story to people, enjoy interacting with people, hearing their stories. And I just realize how blessed I am.
You give some real perspective too, because and I don't mean to be dramatic about this, but you and your wife both have careers where what happens during your days is life and death. And this is going to sound a little bit harsh, and I don't mean it too harsh, but I mean it a little bit harsh. We live in a world where if somebody doesn't get enough likes on social media, it's the end of the world. Or if my neighbor has a nicer car than me, it's the end of the world. Or I didn't get it. And your jobs, your professions, your callings, I'd call them, really teach a sense of what matters. When you stand with somebody while they whisper goodbye to a loved one,
That's right.
it's hard to go home and be worried about the color of the siding.
Right. These patients that are on hospice care, and we interact with them, and just knowing that they're ready.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard to, and you bring that home with you. You can, especially when it involves kids. I never really realized until I had kids of my own, but when you run these calls that involve these kids or these elderly, it's just, and you come home and then it's like, I just want to hug my kids. There's times I've come home after a hard day and woke my kids up. They had school the next day. Wake them up and just give me a hug.
Who cares?
Daddy loves you. Just want you to know that. Never forget that. And, and now we're blessed with Kipton.
Yeah.
Kipton's come along. And, man, he's a great baby. You don't hear nothing out of him. There's days I'll be cleaning the house and I forget it. I'm not going to lie. I'll forget about him. I'm like, but he's a great kid, great baby. Couldn't ask for any better kids. And there's days, they fight. I want to call child services on myself, like, we're never going to make it.
What does it take?
But you better come to Merle Road. It's bad, but I love them. We wouldn't trade them for nothing. They're great kids.
You got a beautiful family.
And being able to tell my story, these podcasts is a generational thing. They're going to be able to come back in and listen to this and say, man, my dad went through that, and be able to tell that story
and draw strength from that story.
It is. It is. And and man, Alicia's able to tell them, hey, just keep moving. Just keep living life. Keep being yourself. And and I worry, with the way the world is and what I see every day. We're very cautious, parents about how our kids go out and do things or stay in the night with somebody. Even Adam, one of the best people in the world. But Adam, I worry about my kids there because he's got so much stuff going on. His kids have got so much, different things. And so you just worry about them, because of the things that we've seen. And it's hard for us to let go of the reins and let, our kids.
My sister's a nurse and intensive care nurse, pediatric. And we always joke that she can find how you can get killed in any situation because she's been doing it long enough. She's had somebody in about every situation.
And that's hard. That's a hard job. Kids. It's just, it's absolutely.
Could not.
And the way I always say is, the older generation, they live their life and they've got, these stories to tell. And these kids, man, they don't, and they're young. They're still getting ready to start life. And, they don't, you really don't start life till you start paying taxes, I guess.
That's a good way of putting it.
It's,
well, man, thank you for sharing your story with us today. Is there anything you wish I'd asked you or that you'd like to share the chat?
No, I appreciate you letting me come in and talk. And thanks to the church for being our support and being behind us with everything that we've been through, and we look forward to paying it forward. That's what we're here for.
Man, I'm glad you could do it, and I'm glad that our friends could hear this story today and these stories today, and I'm glad you're still here because it sounds like God's not done with you yet.
I don't think He is. I think there's more to come, and me and Alicia's got a lot of new things, exciting things, good things coming up in 2023, 2024. So we're looking at expanding our careers and doing more and getting involved more with different things. And I've actually looked at, starting my own podcast. I listen to podcasts, a lot of my time. And so when I heard the church was launching a podcast, I thought, I got to be in here. I'm going to try to be the first one, but I've been beat.
And you were beat. I'm sorry.
And now I've got to, even following behind them. That's some very big shoes to fill.
Yeah, you're behind some great folks, but
right.
There's some good ones still to come after you too.
That's right.
So
that's right.
This has been fun. I knew this podcast thing would be fun to do, but I didn't have any clue how much fun it would be to do. Just to get to, for one, to sit here and have these conversations has been super fun. But then the conversations after the conversations. So like when somebody calls me and says, I heard the episode where you talked to so-and-so, and man, I loved when she said such and such. It's been neat, the third and fourth order effects. It's been fun. Well, I guess we should probably call it a day. So, Brandon, thanks for being with us. Friends, thank you for listening, and I do hope that you'll subscribe, you'll share this with a friend. Maybe you need to do what Brandon did, shoot me a text message and say, I want to tell my story, because we've got plenty of, the internet is wide open. We can do as many of these as you want. But until we get together again, I can't wait to hear what God is up to in your story.
Thanks for listening to Rough Drafts. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you are at it, help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review. Until next time, let's keep looking for how God writes His love into our stories.